Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Life Coach Code podcast. On this podcast, we are focused on helping you improve all four fundamental pillars of the human being: the spirit, the mind, the body, and the heart, and discover the hidden superpowers within each of them. Today, we have a special guest. Her name is Edith Moricz, and she's specializing in something that's really interesting for most of you listening and watching. She can help you find your dream job fast. Now, I'm thrilled to introduce her and I'm going to share a little bit about her. She's a dynamic career coach, as I mentioned, with an inspiring story and a wealth of experience. Edith's career spans over 2 decades, including roles in financial advertising, charitable fundraising, adjunct college teaching, and most notably, career coaching. In 2016, Edith launched the Fast Track to Your Dream Job coaching program, dedicated to guiding professionals towards their ideal careers with confidence and clarity. She was named LinkedIn's #1 career coach in 2017 and a top 10 coach in 2021. Edith's personal experiences have shaped her coaching approach that helps people land their dream job in the shortest path possible. Now let's hear from Edith herself and how you can actually find and land your dream job fast. Edith, it's an honor to have you on this podcast. Welcome.
Thanks so much, Denny. Thank you for the warm introduction. I appreciate that, and it's a delight to be here today.
Okay, so let's jump right into the juicy questions. And I just want to ask you out of the bat, can anyone land any job?
Yes, the short answer is yes, and provided that they're motivated to do so, and provided that they're eager to move to the next level. However, having said that, there's many professionals that come to me who don't have either one of those, descriptions that they could say are relevant, and yet they know they want something better. So either I work with a lot of people who already have tremendous confidence, they know they need something more that they're not getting at their current organization or current role, or there's someone who has all the talent, has all the skills, but confidence is definitely lacking. So there's a smorgasbord of different kinds of descriptions of professionals, but at the end of the day, when they all come to me, the end result is they will land their dream job in the shortest timetable.
That's so reassuring, especially for young people these days, because I know how hard it is for a lot of people to find a job, not just their dream job. So I just want to go and go back a little bit and speak a little bit about you and how you came to the position you are right now. And then we're going to return and speak a little bit about the mindset, because it's all about the mindset, right? When people are trying to look for a job, they believe there are so many obstacles out, but when you really think about it, the only thing stopping them is their own mindset. So that's where you are shining, that's where your expertise lies, and that's what we're gonna focus on. But first, you worked across multiple industries, from financial services, charitable fundraising, as we said, academia, and now career coaching. How has your diverse career background shaped your approach as a career coach?
Great question. Tremendously, I'd say. So when I started off in financial services, the first step they did was train us on how to have conversations with individuals, with companies, learn about their situation, their life story, their goals. Because you can't give recommendations on their financial futures unless you have a sense of what their values are, what's important to them. So from day one, those are the kind of conversations that I learned to have. And of course, mixing in charisma, demonstrating how important it is to get to know someone and do a lot of listening. So I had many, many years of that. And I switched gears a few times during those various industries due to changes in the industry itself. So I found myself going from the financial services, uh, joyfully helping nonprofits of various missions raise funding for much needed programs. And then simultaneous to that, being called to do some adjunct college teaching, and again, happily landing in career coaching. So what all of those have in common is tremendous relationship building, a lot of listening, problem solving, goal setting, and knowing what is each group, each demographic that I worked with, what is their ultimate goal and what's the fastest way to get them there, and taking into account what their specific needs are. So the amount of value driven propositions, with a marketing term, that had to be incorporated was tremendous. But between my personality and being very extroverted and enjoying working with people. And the part about shifting specifically into the career coaching and what is, I'm very happy to say, it landed me the various recognitions throughout the years and client success stories, that came from the exact program that I put together with Fast Track to Your Dream Job, came from myself having to manage a job transition and go from the difficulties of that into finding myself in a very triumphant situation. So taking all of that and wanting to make sure that everybody that I speak with, that I work with, goes through the exact kind of short path, land that dream job, and then from there, make the tremendous impact at the company, in your life, in the community, so that all those skills are really being leveraged in the most beautiful way. And with so many people who are either in the career transition or not happy where they are, there's a tremendous amount of talent out there that's just, it's not being used in the right way. So I'm in a very happy position to enjoy working with everyone and get them where they need to be, where it brings them joy and lets them leverage what they're supposed to do, and not just be in a position that they're doing the work, it's 9 to 5, punching in, punching out, just doing what they're supposed to do. That's just, it's such an underutilization of what they really should find themselves maximizing. And that's part of my greatest role.
What are some common challenges that clients face when trying to identify their ideal career?
I believe they really undervalue what their true skills are. So just because someone's had a good, decent enough path in one industry or several industries, had, again, decent performance reviews, been happy, but there's other skill sets that are being unmet. And when I speak to many of them, they then reveal through this process of really talking about their life path, talking about challenges, values they grew up with, and how what would bring them back to being really, really happy is leveraging the most important skill sets to bring them joy. So what I see a lot of is a lot of people doing their work, continuing on in their position, and just doing it for the sake of doing it, but not leveraging the highest level of the skill sets that would truly enable them to maximize the benefit, maximize the value added by doing something they really should be doing. So the first step I do in that case with everyone is to really understand, to dig deep and find out what is it you really enjoy doing. Let's talk about some great situations you've had at work, some challenging ones, and bring them back to some moments of some incredible achievements. And everybody has them. So when we are in difficult positions and we're either not happy or not challenged, we tend to forget about the enormous impact we've had and very tangible ways we've made a difference, because our mind is not trained to think that way. Our mind is trained to think about the bad things and work with that, and then we lose sight of it. But if we revisit that, that changes the whole spectrum. And that's, I know when we get to it, that's part of the real success mindset.
I know a lot of people that just because they need money, they look for a job, and this need for money is pressuring them to just find any job. And then when they find any job, which means any job that's not aligned with their values and their strengths, they feel miserable and they feel stuck within this job. So it's like this vicious loop of trying to find a job, finding something just to get money, not being satisfied, and then because you're not satisfied, you don't deliver the most value, so you might get fired, you might quit, and then you keep looking and keep looking, and you go this downward spiral that is not leading you towards success. So I want to ask you, for, let's say, a student right now, it's coming out of the education world and they just finished studies and they're looking for a job. What would you say is a good advice or a tip, what they can do to discover what they really want to do with their life, to discover their values, discover their strengths, and maybe even shift their mindset on how they look at a job?
Great question. So first, I would say there's first a bit of an equilibrium involved in everyone who starts off the process of either their job search or finding out what the next step is. So the first thing to make sure is that all goes back to the foundational piece is wellness. So number one, if someone is leading a life where they're taking care of themselves, I want to say daily walks, something that's energizing, all else can be true. And many people look for the job, they're doing everything possible, but they're not taking care of themselves in terms of the wellness piece. So with everyone, among the first questions I say is, what are you currently doing just to manage your health, mental, physical, all that stuff. How are you managing that? And some of them are already doing great things. So then at least I know they have that equilibrium. Others, not so much. So we first try to figure out what makes sense to help them manage that while they're dealing with the stresses of the job search. The second piece for a student would be, the great thing about the student years is you have a tremendous opportunity to explore trying out skills, upskilling, trying out different positions. In many cases, let's say internships, ways in which to explore a company or an industry, and just to learn like a sponge and get as much information as possible, because when there's so much talent, it's a combination of those skill sets that really open our eyes to saying, well, here are some things I really love doing. I don't really like these other skills that I've learned recently, but a combination of them. So the more they can expose themselves to learning more, meeting people, of course, networking is huge, but having that conversation, having the dialogue, at some point soon, they will find someone who is doing the kind of things that they enjoy doing, the kind of things that maximize their own energy, their charisma, and then they won't feel so lost. And if they're fortunate enough as well to they do things the proper way, is get those early the mentorships, talking to someone who understands what they're going through, so they can really feel, ask questions, make sure that anything that doesn't make sense or whatever observations they get, they can get some real words of wisdom. So that would be the starting point.
And in your opinion, what's the best way for them to do outreach, to look for a job, to look for an interview?
LinkedIn. LinkedIn is always the best way, and it first starts off with what we call personal branding. So many undergraduates, even graduate students, the first launching pad for anybody in whatever capacity they're at is to make sure that they're branded properly on LinkedIn. And I refer specifically to their headline and the about section. And by saying that, I mean that the headline should not be, I see a lot of very generic descriptions, industries they're in, the name of their position, sometimes how many years, but it doesn't give anybody any sense of maybe how many years someone's done it. But I want to see something that talks about the few skills they're really good at. I want to read something about impact. I want to read a description about career vision. So something that's telling enough and has enough excitement, enough energy in it, that then encourages me then to look at their about section. So most people who come to me, their LinkedIn needs rebranding. So it's the first thing we start off with. And they'll notice very quickly that how they see themselves, what they're good at, what their strengths are, it's even more than that. It's way more of a capturing of where's the energy, how many years have you been doing it, what have you accomplished. So the main point on that headline section should be a statement that when a hiring manager or a senior leader reads that, they should get a sense. I call it the 25,000-foot view. What I'm reading there should give me a sense at the highest level. What is this person's skill? What has been their impact on society or the community or in industries? And from the about section, I read some more details about specifically what they've accomplished. And so all of that's really the launching pad that tells the world, here's how I think of myself, here's how I'm leveraging my skills. So for those who just think that LinkedIn is just all about putting, well, here's my company, here's the number of years, maybe I've done it, most people don't even have that, or just a few generic terms, they'll say IT, they'll say engineering, they'll say academia, I went to this graduate school. None of that, the helpfulness of that is so low on the scale that it really needs to be revved up. And that's the first thing I do. And once I do that, it just changes everybody's perspective. And once they read that and they say, oh, wow, Edith, this is really what I am. I'm like, yeah, this is really the kind of background you have. And they then understand that, oh, this is what you meant by saying what I'm really good at. The words I was using were just so generic. So that's definitely the starting point. Everyone should have a polished LinkedIn. And when they call me during the consult that I have, the first thing I do, the very first call we talk about is let's look at their LinkedIn section, and I give them feedback within 5 minutes about what things need to be adjusted, but of course, obviously, what's also good about it. So that's the very first step.
And if somebody wants to work with you, somebody wants to schedule this consultation call or a free discovery call that you offer, where they can find you? What's the
They
best
can
way
find
to
me on
start?
LinkedIn. They can find me on LinkedIn, and I know during this program you'll put a link to that. They can find me on LinkedIn. They can also check out Ace Your Interview. Actually, I also have aceyourinterviewpodcast.com, as well as my main piece, fasttracktoyourdreamjob.net. So right in there, they can click on that link, and they can set up a time to talk with me and tell me what some of their challenges are. And with that scheduling, we get a sense of what our rapport is. I listen to their background and how they, their narrative of how they describe themselves and a bit of an intro. So I'll know right away in that 20-minute call, I'll know right away what their energy level is, what their challenges are, and we'll know if this will be a good fit to move forward. And from there, we start the program, and which is just very exciting to know that at the end of that program, they will not only feel more confident, they'll have such a better sense. There's such a transformation of what their true highest level of skills are, what they can do with it, and then the narrative, most importantly, of course, during the interview and how they introduce themselves, what are they actually saying? What are the words they're using? What's the energy? What's the charisma? How are they leveraging their skills at the highest level so that when they get asked during that interview, tell us about yourself. Why are you here? What is it about this position that excites you? They know exactly what to say. And in my program, all the scripts, all the words to use, what to say, how to say it, they get all of that from me. So they have a tremendous set of tools. So this is a guaranteed process to help them land the dream job.
That's powerful. And for everybody that's interested, we're going to leave all the links in the description so it's convenient for you and you can go through them and reach out to Edith if you want to work with her. Now we're going to continue this podcast, and I want to ask you one question that probably a lot of people are familiar with, the elevator pitch. So I want to ask you, is it crucial to make the first impression? And what are the key elements of a strong, compelling elevator pitch?
Yes, so absolutely. The elevator pitch is your first words on how you both answer the intro when they ask you, tell us about yourself, or regardless of actually what the questions are, because they all lead to the same information. So it's the company or the hiring manager's way of saying, let's have you talking now because we have your resume in front of us, we have your cover letter, we see who you are on paper, but let's see if that matches with what you're saying, with what your voice is, your body behavior. And the elevator pitch is a way of bringing that together, but it's so much more than that. And of course, everybody knows they should never wing it. So the key elements of the elevator pitch are knowing really well, practically flawlessly. I say practically because it's not meant to be memorized. It's meant to be something you know walking into the conversation, but you know it so you can talk about it as easily as we're talking now. Have the charisma, have the energy, be spontaneous. We're not robots, but be very aware of what are those skill sets that you excel in, but how do those skill sets relate? Think about the job description, think about the elevator pitch essentially is how are you going to be describing yourself? What are you going to be saying? How are you going to be persuading or convincing the hiring manager that they should continue on and give you a second interview? Well, the way you do that, looking at the job description or knowing what position you're specifically speaking about. In that list of all the skills they're talking about, take 3 or 4 of the skills that on the highest level match what you're really, really good at. And then using those 3 or 4 skill sets, make sure going into the elevator pitch, you have 2 examples, 2 specific, very tangible, quantitative/qualitative examples on what you've done, leveraging those skills to solve a problem. I say qualitative or quantitative because quantitative means, of course, numbers. You helped cut X number of costs, you've helped build up this team by X number of people, here's what it led to. Whereas qualitative is more the kind of work you did that made a huge difference in the company and it added to increasing efficiencies or building up employee morale, things that less number driven, but more driven in terms of energy and benefiting people, benefiting the company. So once those statements are shared, the next thing soon after that is saying something to the effect of, I've been in the industry X number of years. Among my great impacts are X, Y, Z. And knowing what the job description, knowing what you're looking for, I want to share with you what you can expect from having me as an asset on your team. Here's why. Let me share a few examples of what I've done. You give those examples. And the closing piece, one of the most important pieces to say is that I'm delighted to be here to learn more about your company, your team, your culture, and especially your value system, because I want to make sure that all of these aligns with my career vision in the direction I want to go in. And then you say nothing, because the reason for that last statement, the interview, particularly the elevator pitch, has become a very strategic moment where it's not just someone asking you questions. It's just as important that they know that you're also interviewing them, and they also have to impress you with how they would potentially recognize your talents, what's the path they have laid out for you, What are they doing to show you that your skills are going to be tremendously used? They will appreciate you. But what are the processes that the team builds on? Because that's not always going to be in alignment. And with many people who come to me for career coaching, the biggest challenge they have is they know their skills, they know what they love, but they're in a company where the alignment of values and corporate culture is no longer true because of this particular statement. Once they hear that, well, this company, the way they talk, the way they're describing their work, it doesn't make you feel a certain way that you're valued. So by saying that statement of saying, I'm here just as importantly to learn about this company, I'm looking forward to learning more to make sure that it aligns with me. Very important statement. And the other key is not to, I'm going against my first rule right now because I'm so delighted to be here, but typically the way we talk, our own diction and the speed should be a little bit slower than what I'm doing now, but I'm enthusiastic. So but normally it's charismatic and you smile because there's a lot of brilliant people there who have wonderful resumes, fantastic backgrounds, but they ruin the interview because they're so eager to get through it. And the goal is whatever time they give you, always use less of it because you want to be invited back. And the more confident, the more calm, and I'm doing it right now, the more calm, the more in control. There's charisma and there's the sense that I'm happy to be here, but let's see how you can impress me. So now the way I'm talking is more a way of how it should be done. And during my coaching program, certainly for anyone who has a tendency to talk a little bit quicker or they're not so confident about their pitch, among the many things we solve is I help them nail the pitch, ace that interview. So that'll get them on the way to acing the whole interview process and landing that dream job.
That's beautifully said, and it's reminding me of something that I'm seeing, and I believe it's one of the greatest mistakes that people do when they approach getting a new job. They approach it from a place of lack. They approach it from a place of neediness, and when they go on that interview, it's like either I get this job or it's the end of the world. So this energy that they bring with themselves, it can be felt, and it's often repulsive, also for the interviewer. And this is subconscious communication between, of course, the person who is interviewing and the interviewee, and it's not making your chances any higher because we all want, as you said, somebody that also puts us in a situation that we can also impress them, because then we believe that the person is also valuable enough and that we should also fight for their attention. So when somebody uh, my question is, in your opinion, what's the biggest mistake people do? Is this mindset, or is there something else that you are seeing as a professional?
Is definitely mindset. And I may get myself in trouble for saying this, but something I'm seeing an awful lot of. And when I started coaching, this is one of the first things I told people, having hashtag open to work or hashtag desperate. I understand the emotions behind it. The Wall Street Journal just talked about this a few days ago, and it's probably among the worst things they can put on their headline on their LinkedIn because it calls attention for all the wrong reasons. You want to have attention called to you because of what your background and what your branding implies, not to stand out with the hashtag group. And I know, as I said, all the reasons they do it, but it's far more important to have the mindset that I know my worth, I know my value, the difference and the impact that I've made on many, many occasions throughout your career path, whether it's one industry or several industries, and whatever industry you're in. The key is to know that I know my achievements and to be able to have a sense of both pride, but also a sense of talking about what they've done. So the job search, the career transition, there's enough challenges in there. So it doesn't take much for someone to feel broken down, feel as though they're really being impacted in both a psychological and physical way. But the only way to counterattack that and really counter that idea is by being very knowledgeable, being very comfortable. I guess the words I would use is saying that know, understand, and leverage your skills, your impact. And a lot of people, they don't see themselves, they're so close to it, they don't see really what they've been doing. They think, well, I've been doing industries, I've been doing this kind of work. Whatever work you've been doing, you've been making a difference. You are making an impact. But if you can't enunciate that or leverage it or showcase it, then unfortunately you become your worst enemy, because there's a lot of professionals out there who, let's say, don't have as much of a robust background. But if they can talk about it the way we're talking about it with charisma, then they're already steps ahead of everybody else. So with the brilliance, with all the work someone's done, with all the accomplishments they've had, they have to be able to very quick on their feet, think calmly, think with a lot of confidence, and stand up for themselves. Because if they're not going to advocate what they've already achieved, then nobody can do it better than themselves, and they really have to be their best cheerleaders. So among the many things that I coach on is, how do you lift yourself up? What do you say to yourself? What kind of affirmations? What kind of ways do you take care of yourself to enable yourself to have the energy to be proud of what you've done and to go into those interviews and really be able to qualify, quantify how you've helped organizations, and most specifically, how does that relate to the company you're speaking with? Because if you can look at their website or quickly identify the problems they have and start saying, well, here, ABC, here are the issues you've had. I know because in the many organizations I've worked at, I've done the same thing. We've had many success stories. And this is just one of the many ways that I'd be an asset to your team. So talking about it in a way that sounds more like, I know my value, I know my skill, that's confident. The desperation piece, unfortunately, that requires coaching and support and affirmations, and it can very well be reversed. So that's the one thing I tell people is just make sure, know that even if you can't think of it right away, what all these achievements are, if you took some time and sat down and listed them all out, that's the key exercise that'll help you then say, well, here's all that I've done. I have to be mindful of what this is and how to present it in the proper way.
Thank you for that. That's really powerful. And yeah, I know that confidence plays a huge role in job hunting, and it's just not in jobs, in all domains of life. Confidence is really important. But this process of searching for a job can be really stressful, demoralizing. And I know in your coaching, you're helping people with this to regain their confidence. But what can just a regular person do in their daily life to stay confident and resilient after many, maybe so many rejections? Do you have any
Sure.
tip?
Yes, of course. So as you said, you nailed it. So among the things that are very, very important is, of course, the success mindset, and the confidence goes, it's beyond a feeling. It starts off with, as we're talking now, it's the posture, the whole wellness regimen. There's a lot of people who have wonderful positions, wonderful jobs, or they're knee deep in interviews. But if they were to be asked how are they taking care of themselves, how are they managing that? Because you can't manage this whole process and not take care of yourself. So that's rule number one. Rule number two, in terms of identifying the skills and feeling, what can I do today? I'd say it starts off with three very simple questions to ask oneself. If they're trying to figure out what should I be doing, how do I get comfortable? How do I get both comfortable and confident in navigating the system? So the answers to the three questions I'm about to share, that'll point them in the right direction. And that'll then lead them to better understanding how to understand, showcase, and share their skills. Those three questions are being very aware of what skills do they excel at? What are they really, really good at? Number two, what skills do you enjoy? What do you really love to do? And the two of them have to work together because loving how you do something and also excelling in it, that has to be kind of be critical. Because if you love doing something but you're not good at it, that's not going to work, and vice versa. And the third question that's most important is, what kind of organizational culture am I the most aligned with, or cultures? So once you know what you love to do, what do you excel at, what do you enjoy, what do you excel at, and then what culture is going to work best with you, that brings someone to the core of what should I be focusing my time on? Because I also talk with a lot of professionals who have so much talent, it's an abundance, but they don't know how to narrow it down. They think I'm supposed to be doing all these 20 skills every day. No, there's many, many skills, but of those skills, there's only a top 30% that you really, really, really are able to realistically to focus on every day. Those are those skill sets, and answering those three questions gets you there. Once you figure out what the skills are and what areas you should really be focusing on, the next piece is that, how do I talk about the actual problem solving skills that will leverage the skills I'm really good at, or the experiences I've had? Because once you start talking about a specific example of how you solved a problem for a team, how you supervised conflict resolution, emotional intelligence, how did you manage multiple global cultures, working in the hybrid environment or the in-person, how did you manage all of that and do that for several various industries? Or how did you manage difficulties problem solving with various VIP clients or day-to-day problems? Once you have answers to that and you can actually summarize that, the way in which you describe that to the hiring manager or in the company, or you talk about that even amongst the networking events, networking situations, it'll give somebody more power in identifying what they really want to do. So, of course, all this doesn't happen in the bubble. Knowing what you're really good at, you then have to be connecting with people. Easiest way and most efficient is LinkedIn. And there's ways actually on my aceyourinterviewpodcast.com. There's many things that I highlight there from a psychological perspective, interview tips, as well as well-being. So if someone listened to those various podcasts, they're each about 2 minutes apiece. There's dozens and dozens and dozens of them, but they all lay out exactly what to be thinking about, what questions to ask. And the podcast itself is meant to be immediately actionable strategies. So with each of those episodes, they listen to it, they'll walk away with something they can easily identify ASAP and get them on the road to being on the next step. Because I know part of today's audience is someone feeling down, frustrated, negative feelings. It's hard to lift up your confidence when you're negative. But one of the biggest messages I want to say is that we all possess so many skill sets, and so many of them either not tapped into, so many of them we forget because it's been years and years since we've used them. But if we really sit down and think about the answer to those 3 questions, what do I love to do? What am I really good at? And then the culture piece, it'll bring us closer to feeling good about, okay, here's what I've already accomplished, and here's how I've helped companies. I've made a difference. That energy that we use, that is used to describe that situation, enables us to lift ourselves up and be more open to the next level, the next stage, because both the job search interviews, they can be very challenging processes. The formula is foolproof, and it all comes back to knowing clearly, succinctly, and without any doubt, with having full confidence. And that's part of the whole success mindset, the body behavior, speaking with confidence, the charisma. So all that being a given, because the best interview is not going to be great no matter what you're saying if the body language, the posture, all that isn't there. So that's a critical piece of it. But the core of all this is understanding how to showcase and how to highlight whatever the organization is looking for, as long as 75 or 80% of what you're doing, what your skills are, matches the job description. I did recently a piece in LinkedIn talking about the fact that professionals are concerned that if if what's being asked in the job description doesn't match every single thing they're doing, not needed. 75% is enough. And from there, as you go through the long list of the job description, pick out just 3 or 4 of those skill sets that match what you're really great at, and be very able to succinctly, clearly, in polished language, describe two problems, 2 situations on a team or an organization that you solved a problem, leveraging those skills. If you have 2 examples that incorporate several skills, even better. But how you talk about the joy and the pride you had in leveraging those skills, and the enthusiasm about what it meant to work in a team, what it meant to solve the problem, help the company, take them to a whole new level of growth, and over all the years being even those who are subject matter experts, even better. And of course, the number of years you've been doing it. Most people forget that it's very important to talk about how many years have you been in multiple industries, and what is the joy that, what do you find is your greatest joy in creating efficiencies across the company line? Is your greatest joy in building relationships and raising 8 figures from fundraising, or the other big pieces, the many nonprofit, the volunteer work you've done, community work? So any aspect of what leverages what you're good at, what you love to do, the difference you've made. And of course, saying that with a big smile and saying how much you're looking forward to bringing all those skill sets over into this organization and learning more about their team, their process, the cultures, and the many ways you can make a difference. So the wording, the smoothness of it, and this all comes from planning and rehearsing. And again, among the things that I do, especially on my consult, is I'll have each person I talk to say, let's talk about, tell me how you describe yourself. What do you say about yourself? And right there, I can figure out what's missing, what needs to be aligned. And when they get off that call after 20 some odd minutes, they'll be told exactly, I'll be sharing with them exactly what words to use, how to describe themselves. And that part of it's very foolproof, and it works. And I'm fortunate to have so many testimonials from clients over all the years in many different industries, and taking them into a much better space in their career path. And so they don't have to, no longer have to suffer and go through the agonizing components of a very difficult and frustrating job search and interview process, but really be very triumphant. And that's what this is all about. That's why, Denny, I created this whole program, because I wanted people to take all the challenges they had and transform them in a matter of weeks and really bring them where they belong. And where everybody belongs is taking those skills, taking those emotions, credentials, expertise. There's so much everybody has, and then being able to leverage that in the community, in the world, and do what they do best and be really happy about it. And of course, have financial security, because that's also a very important part of this conversation. So I'm just delighted to share this with those who are with our audience, and I know we can continue making a difference.
Thank you so much for sharing. It was an absolute pleasure having you on this podcast today. And I just want to sum up everything we said. And I love how you really focus on the well-being of the people, because it really, everything starts from that, right? If you don't take care of yourself in each of these four fundamental pillars that we are sharing on this podcast, spirit, mind, body, and heart, if you don't eat healthy, if you don't exercise, if you don't breathe clean air, if you don't feel in peace within yourself, it's affecting every area of your life. And when you approach looking for a job from a place of lack, from a place of, I need to get this job. If I don't get this job, it's the end of the world. And you focus all your attention there, neglecting yourself, neglecting the person that you are actually selling to the job, you are setting yourself for failure. So you start with yourself, you start with your own well-being, even if you don't have a job. If you have money to survive, if you have money to live, or you borrow money from somebody, focus on yourself. That's the first priority. Till the end of your life, the first priority is focusing on yourself. Second, you need to know who you are. What are your values? What are your strengths? What are you actually looking for? And with these three beautiful questions you just mentioned, people can actually find that. People can actually find what they really look for when they look for in a job. Because yes, financial security is on our list and it's the primary thing why we look for a job. But between the lines, at the core of it, it's not just the financial security. It's about building a career that will give you financial security. So if you want to build a career, you need to know what type of career you're looking for, because it's going to affect you in the long run. And then finally, as you mentioned, you have to tweak your LinkedIn profile and all these small tricks and techniques that you shared on this podcast that will help you to actually land your dream job. And when people work with you, they can do this really fast. They can do this in weeks, in months. They can find their dream job and land it. So thank you so
I want
much.
to add something, Joe. I want to add something that as
Sure.
well, a very important closing point is that a lot of people also, as you said, once they've lost confidence, perhaps the career transition is going on more than a few months. So I also want to really make it very clear that there's so much that's in each professional's control. They're not navigating this process. If they choose to navigate on their own by not getting support, that's a separate choice. But there's so much that most people, when it comes to success mindset, they're not thinking about it. There's so much in their control, and they can get a snapshot of that looking at this Ace Your Interview podcast, but also looking through my website. But if they, I hope, take advantage of this free consultation during that phone call, as I better understand each person's situation, look at their LinkedIn, but really have a conversation, I will give them those three actionable ideas that on their own, they could begin to do the minute we hang up. So it's very much in their control, and it's sad and it's frustrating when so many other factors, so many other things we see in the world want to convince us that, oh gosh, it's out of your control, here's what you do. Well, that can get people all riled up and all anxious. They don't need that. So what they should know is that the primary focus, in addition to the well-being, is that there is a ton of things in their control, and everything they could begin to do as soon as possible. And I'm very happy to help them get to that stage. And I'm thrilled about the work you do that enables coaches like myself to be able to share this with the world and help them land their dream job. And that's what it's all about. So this is such a joy. I so enjoyed collaborating with you once again, and looking forward to helping more people, Denny.
Thank you so much again. And we're going to put all the links that people will need in the description, so it's convenient for them to find you and consult with you. And as you said, looking for a job doesn't need to be stressful, doesn't need to bring you anxiety and stress. It can actually be a beautiful process, fast process, and it can help you land your dream job, and you can help people with that. So everybody that's interested, that wanna work with Edith, that wanna just maybe even consult with Edith for free, go to the link in the description and you're gonna find your steps forward. Thank you so much, Edith. It was an absolute pleasure speaking with you today. And for everybody, thank you for listening, thank you for watching, and see you in the next episode.